Before I get into the video, I want to plug a couple of things. For one, just released a music video for my song Memories. It is up on Tidal, it's up on Apple Music, and I believe it should be up on YouTube with Vivo. The title of the song is Memories. The music video is made by my friend Jesse Clavin. Really happy with the song. My father plays sax on it. I'm really happy with the music video as well, as hard as it was to get me to actually upload it and release the song. It was like pulling teeth to get me to upload the video, but it's up. Check it out. It's linked below. Now, I'd also like to plug the patrons, the Patreon group. Going to be completing the November Q&A today. There's a lot of good submissions this month. New members, I'm really happy about that. Really appreciative toward all of you guys who support. And yeah, if you're interested in the Q&As, if you're interested in one-on-one video lessons, consider joining. It's also linked below. Now, last thing I'm going to plug before I get started. My brand, Collage Skateboards. Okay. You can go to clubdist.com and you can use the code Norman for 20% off our decks. These are some of our graphics. This is actually a remake of one of our earlier graphics, the Lovers graphic. People loved it, and so we redid it with Club. So yeah, if you go to clubdist.com, you can check out all the collage decks over there, and if you use Norman as your code, you can get that 20% discount. So let's get into it. Today's video is another rookie mistakes, and this one is actually one of the most relevant to me personally, where I am in my skateboarding. I do see this quite a bit from skaters at every level, but I have noticed that this is a big thing with people who tend to be at the amateur level, like sponsored amateur level, pro level, whatever. Like when you're getting free stuff and you're traveling and you're filming video parts, I've noticed this from a lot of people on the younger end of that spectrum. And it actually took me till about 35 to really learn and internalize this lesson. And what I'm talking about is in the same spirit as the last video where I talked about rushing to try to learn tricks that you may or may not be ready for because you haven't learned the trick before that in the logical hierarchy. Like obviously people are going to learn tricks at different times, but there's definitely a path that works. Like if you're on the kickflip path, right? Like you're a kickflip guy. You got to learn how to kickflip before you can learn how to varial flip. It's most likely not going to work. Same, you're not going to be able to backside flip if you can't kickflip and if you can't back 180, right? But sometimes we want to rush ahead. Well, this is different. So what I've noticed and what I committed throughout my skating is, you know, you have talent and you want to express that talent. You learned a trick. You want to do the trick. And a lot of times, and this is something that I'm dealing with, we're making a video for collage and, you know, our writers, they're a bit younger than I am. And a lot of times they'll film a trick and it's a perfectly good trick for their video part, but they know that they can do the next version of that trick. They have done it at the skate park. They know that they can do it. And so they'll cannibalize their own video part because once they film one trick, they don't think it's good enough because of what they feel they're capable of. And what I'm having to explain to them is that what you're capable of doing and what life is going to allow you to do are two separate and not even connected things in a lot of instances. Like there are tricks that I've been able to do for 20 years that I've never filmed because never gotten to be at the right spot for that trick, or I was at a spot that would have been good for it and didn't feel that trick, or I was trying that trick and I got kicked out and then I went back to the spot and it had been skate stopped or it had been bulldozed. Any number of things in life can affect whether or not you get to film a specific trick ever, even if you can do it, even if you can do it first try. An example for me would be like nollie inward heel frontside nose slide. I put one up on my Instagram in, I think, 2021. That's the first one I'd ever filmed. It was just in a crappy Instagram line. I put one up last year as well, or last summer as well. But before that, I've been doing that trick since probably maybe like 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And I'd never filmed it. I just hadn't found a spot where I felt like doing it, hadn't done a line where that trick fit in. And so I didn't do that trick. Now that's one thing that happens, right? Like you think yourself out of an opportunity because you think you can do something better. So if I had not been sharp, not been smart, and maybe I filmed a nollie heel front nose at a spot, but I thought, well, I can do a nollie inward heel front nose there, right? And so I went and just crapped that footage out, put it on Instagram, did whatever with it, like, and then the spot's not there, or I get injured, and now I've got this video part coming out, and I'm missing a trick because in a way my ego got the best of me. And this is today's rookie mistake. I know that was a very long-winded way to get to it, but it's a nuanced topic, and it's something that skaters deal with quite a bit, and it's our egos. Your ego, letting your ego get in the way of your skating, right? And what brought me to this wasn't necessarily thinking that a trick's not good enough and you can do better, so just not caring about the footage that you got. It's actually something else. It's rushing yourself to skate under poor circumstances because you just feel like you need to do this and you have to do it now. And this has gotten me injured a number of times, the worst of which was in 2020 when I had the worst ankle sprain that I've ever had. I sprained my ankle in August of 2020. I didn't feel 100% recovered until August of the following year, so August of 2021. I still don't have full mobility in my left ankle, so I could do like pistol squats before on that left leg. I can't do them anymore. I get to a certain point and that's it. And this is all the result of this injury. And that injury was all the result of me being, for lack of better word, a moron. So I'll explain the circumstances. I had gone out to shoot a specific trick at a specific gap. And I met up with who at the time was one of my team managers and also I was filming with. And we also met up with a photographer. We go to the spot, we check it out. It was really nice to skate, better than I even expected it to be. At the time, it was getting skated by quite a few people, so it totally made sense to me. Didn't make sense why the trick that I was doing hadn't been done yet, because to me it seemed like a pretty easy trick. The trick that I would have wanted to do in my first was a much more difficult trick, but someone had already did it. So I didn't know why this trick hadn't been done. But, everyone experiences tricks differently. So start trying my trick, land on one. I might have rolled away sketchy from one, and then we get kicked out. Now, what happens when you're filming? It's kind of like being in a fight, right? Or being in any type of situation where your body is at risk, right? Your sympathetic nervous system is just fired up, right? You're amped up. You're ready to go. So we get kicked out of the spot, and I was lusting to skate. And so I only had a specific amount of time to skate that day because we were actually getting a new car, and I had to be done by a specific time. And the spot we were going to skate, it wasn't supposed to take us too long. So the team manager, filmer, has another spot. He's like, I got this spot. And to be honest, it looked like kind of a crappy spot, but I was just so jacked to skate, so juiced to skate that I was like, let's go. And we get to the spot, and it was a crappy spot. And I noticed it was a crappy spot, and I thought in my head, I probably shouldn't skate this because it was a dangerous spot. It was a flat bar, and I'm going to put the clip of me spraining my ankle in here probably multiple times so you'll see the spot. It was a flat bar. It was at some business. There was a gap between the flat bar and the wall that was only about this wide. and there was a curb right on the bottom of it. So immediately I start jumping on it, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a crook, nollie, frontside flip out of this. You know, like crooked grind, nollie, frontside 180, kickflip out of it. I'd been doing that trick. I figured I could do it easy. I rushed into it. Filmer's getting ready. I start filming warm-ups of crooked grinds. Now, in the midst of this, I hadn't even changed my deck, and I knew I needed to change my deck because it was actually one of the early collage decks that I was skating, and it was like a prototype on an 8-ply deck, and it was heavier than I was used to, and this deck was older than I usually skate my decks, and I knew I needed to change it. The reason I hadn't changed it that day is because I was skating a gap. And I didn't want to change a board to skate a gap, especially one that lands on asphalt, because it'll chew up your deck. And I didn't feel, it wasn't a big enough gap that I felt I needed brand new fresh pop. And the board was just good enough that it could pass. But what I should have done when we went to this flat bar is switched my board out. Or I probably shouldn't have skated it at all. I probably should have stopped to skate another day. But I pushed it and I rushed because I knew I had not that much time. And now, the bear trap. Now, bear trap is a word that some skaters will use for a rail that has like something inside where you can get your leg caught. So I was focused on not getting my leg caught in the bear trap. So in between the rail and the wall. And there were like little support beams in there. It was sketchy. I should have never skated this spot. Today, I would have just passed, knowing what I know now, having the experience that I have. But I went for it. And inevitably, on one of the tries with that worn down board, I got into a crooked grind, but I didn't get over it the way you need to. I didn't get the right pop so that I was over it just enough that I could nudge my front truck into the rail. And as soon as I get into crooked grind, my right leg slips inside into the bear trap. But I was conscious enough to save my leg from getting twisted and mangled in there. And I leaned all of my weight on the outside. Now, what did I mention earlier? There was a curb right underneath the rail. So immediately, I felt my ankle land right on the razor edge of the curb, sprained, all my weight went on top of that ankle, and I saw stars. My vision went black and then kind of shiny, and I fell to the ground. And immediately, anyone who's had a number of injuries knows that you can assess the severity of your injury based on that blacking out reaction, because that's basically like your body getting shocked. And if you ever see stars, it's a bad injury. So I knew immediately it was a bad injury. Sometimes you can sprain your ankle and not necessarily feel much, and then it'll swell up later. That's not what happened here. I saw stars. My body began to heat up. My ankle immediately began to swell up. I couldn't even stand up. I lied down on the ground. I walked myself into the filmer's car, and then I had to wait in his garage, and I had to call off getting a new car, so I had to call my wife, be picked up. She at first didn't take it too seriously because, you know, she's been with me. She knows I'm always freaking injured. I'm always banged up. Like my elbows, I don't know if you can see them. They're just lumpy and just messed up. My left shin's like coral reef. I don't know what to call the left shin. My body's a mess. There's scar tissue all over my hips, you know, just scar tissue in one of my lips here from everything's mangled. So when someone is with you for a long time and they're used to you hobbling around and just being injured, you know, they're not going to take it seriously at first. So I'm waiting for her to show up. I've got a headache. And yeah, it ended up being one of the worst ankle sprains I ever had. I didn't quite tear my ligaments, but I did damage them, and that's why I lack the mobility. I did physical therapy and all that. Doctor told me it would have been much better if I had broken my ankle, and I suffered all of this because of me being an idiot. What I should have done is I should have stopped, and when he showed me that spot, which I knew was not a good spot, and he'd even mentioned that I don't know why people don't want to skate this spot. People say it's a bad spot because it was a bad spot. But I let my ego lead me into something that I did not need to get into. You know, a lot of us skaters sometimes will have this dumb tough guy mentality, and I had this a lot. One of the biggest regrets that I have for my whole career is that a lot of times I tried to force myself to skate spots that were stupid to skate. Because, you know, you'll hear people talk about, they'll romanticize guys skating these tough spots. And really, a lot of times the guys that are romanticizing that, they don't skate very well themselves. They don't know what they're talking about. To do any skate trick is difficult enough. So there is absolutely no benefit and no reason for you to skate a spot that's tougher than possible. And especially if you're having any type of skate career, because it's your job to find things that are going to give you the least resistance and that are going to allow you to showcase your skill set. If you look at a skater like Shane O'Neill, if you look at a skater like P-Rod, these are guys that have had long careers. These are guys who do fantastic, phenomenal tricks and who will be remembered forever. They've had some of the largest impact on skateboarding as a whole. And if you look at the spots that they skate spots that are good, spots that offer them the least amount of resistance, and they look amazing doing it, and that's all anyone's going to remember. So the often foolish tough guy romanticization of rough spots, it's misplaced. And a lot of times the people who engage in this, they're just making excuses for their substandard skating, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, I could have done a trick that difficult, but I was skating rough spots. Oh, yeah, they're skating those perfect picnic tables. They're skating those perfect. It's BS. The only thing that anyone's going to remember is the trick you did, how well you made it look, and maybe how well it was filmed. Nobody's going to care that you did it on the roughest, crustiest spot possible. The only one who's going to care is you when all the injuries start to mount up. So, you know, this rookie mistake is about mindset more than anything. And this is for like all of you out there that are like at a certain point in your skating, you know, you're out there filming, you're out there subjecting yourself to all of the damage that skateboarding does to us. Because, you know, I've got a lifetime nearly worth of damage that I've done to my body willingly. I'm not asking for any sympathy about that. I signed up for that. I knew what it was about getting into it, and I would definitely do it all over again. But what I do regret is letting the words of, you know, some just dumb people affect how I went about skating, and letting that set off my ego, and letting that cause me to try to skate things that I knew better than trying to skate at times, and trying to push through to try to prove how tough I was. And I've seen this over and over and over. You know, I was out skating with a group of guys, and we were skating a rail at a spot, and one of the guys, I'm not going to mention any names or anything, he found like this weird gap. It had a horrible landing. There was dust all over near it, and he was like, I'm going to try to ollie onto it. And he kind of didn't want to. And you could hear everyone else encouraging him like, oh, wow, that's nasty. That's crazy. That spot's messed up. You should do it. And you could see that he didn't really want to do it. But when he heard the way everyone else talked about the spot, he let his ego get the best of him. And he went for it a couple times. And then he finally committed. And he did his part. He landed in the tiny little patch that he had to land in, but like I said, it was covered in dust and all mangled, and he ended up breaking his ankle. He lost his job because of that. This is really amazing sponsored skater, but he also had a job waiting tables. He lost that job, and really that could have all been avoided if he didn't let the moment get the better of him. So I'm really just advocating for all of us skaters to like treat ourselves better. And do not let your ego get the best of you. Do not let that stupid tough guy mentality get the best of you. You don't have an obligation to show anybody that you can skate any tough spot. Anybody who says anything about like how they romanticize tough spots like that, they usually can't skate anyway, so their opinion doesn't matter. It's really about you being able to showcase your skills the best and have the most fun. If you want to skate a tough spot, go ahead and skate a tough spot. But I'll tell you this. I've had the pleasure of filming with some of the best in the business. Ty Evans comes to mind. Ira Ingram comes to mind. I've been on sessions with like very, very high up there skaters, people whose careers have eclipsed what I've been able to accomplish over the course of my humble career. And I'll tell you this, those guys, they get spots often built up for them. If the write-up isn't right, someone will often pour an extra piece of write-up there. And, you know, often the guys that are getting paid big bucks to film, it's not just because of how they film, but it's also because they've got a kit in the back of their trunk where they will fix the spot. They will fill the crack. They will cover the roughest patch of the ground right before someone pops with Bondo. They will build out an extra step so that someone can skate a rail. And nobody cares that this went down. All that they care about is that they got to see some amazing skateboarding. Whatever you have to do to facilitate that, whatever spot you have to search for to try to mitigate the risk of injury, which is ever present, it's always there. No matter how perfect a spot is, we're dealing with human error, we're dealing with equipment failure, you're dealing with so many things. You don't have anything to prove to some moron who's trying to tell you that it's better somehow to skate something that's worse. Only in skateboarding do we even come across this type of moronic attitude. You know, nobody goes and watches LeBron James play basketball and says that he's not a great basketball player because he's playing on a perfect court, and that every time there's a new possession and the team goes across the court, there's someone to wipe up the sweat so they don't slip. These are high-level athletes who spend their lives acquiring skills that 99.9% of people can never put into context. So yeah, you bet they're going to mitigate the risk of injury. Nobody goes and tells football players that they're not tough because they play on turf that gets fixed and patched up in between games. That's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's only in skateboarding, and it really only comes from certain people. And I don't want you guys that are coming up, that are learning how to skate, I want you guys to be smart, be smarter than I was, and like mitigate those injuries, have a long career. Or even if you don't have a career and you're just skating for fun, making videos with your homies, like, don't risk injury just because some idiot said that it was sicker that you skated something that's going to cause you injury. If you find two handrails and they're both the same size, one of them is less steep and has a better ride up and doesn't run into a wall, and the other one is steeper, has a terrible ride up and runs into a wall, but you got some dumb friend who's telling you that it makes you somehow a better skater because you risk getting a concussion when you land on a pebble and hit your head on the wall that's in front of that rail, that is absolutely dumb. And that friend probably can't do whatever trick you're trying to do. And there might be a little bit of schadenfreude at play. I really don't trust the motives of people that that talk about skating that way. At the end of the day, it's what you can be happy with. But I've been an idiot, so you don't have to. And try to enjoy skateboarding. That's my rookie mistake for today. Don't let your ego get the best of you. Don't force yourself to skate things that you know better than to skate. There's always another spot. There's always another day. You know, you're not going to you're not going to do yourself any favors if you just force yourself into bad situations all the time. And a lot of times when you're young, you feel like this is it. This is every moment is like the last moment. And the majority of the time, this isn't true. The majority of the time, if you don't try to do that trick on that awful spot where you have more risk than you need to, if you wait and you actually go out and search for better spots, if you tell people in your skate scene, tell the filmer, tell the knowledgeable skate spot guy, everybody has that person around them, what you're looking for, and you search for spots, you do a little bit of digging, you'll often find a spot that helps you do that trick. And you'll be in a better position for it. I can't say that you won't get injured because skateboarding is just dangerous. That's just the fact of the matter. But you are going to take away some of the risk factor, which at the end of the day is better. And that's what I got to say. If you don't share my opinion, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Be sure to show some of your skating and what you've done so that you can back up the reason that you hold your position, because I hold mine for very specific reasons. I've seen myself and other skaters just get mangled trying to force themselves to skate terrible spots that really it's not necessary. And you could even have someone fix that spot and come back later, like all of the biggest pros do. And that's the reason that they're able to constantly film high-level tricks, because they know to save themselves for the right time, for the right spot. I remember someone explaining to me how Eric Costin would go to spots, and within 5 minutes of him skating, he would know whether or not he was going to try the trick or not. And if he wasn't feeling it, he would never force himself. And Eric Costin is still killing it to this day. And so is Guy Mariano. And these guys both exercise that type of discretion when they skate spots. And there's a reason they're still around. And there's a reason that guy who you might be holding up, because that dude skates the crustiest stuff, is banged up and can barely walk. And Costin and Guy Mariano are still out filming amazing tricks that I watch. You know, Costin just front tail kickflipped out this super long downhill ledge that's here in LA. And that's not bad at that age. I'd rather be doing that than limping around. So that's all I got for today.